And welcome back. The other hot news that we have across America, according to initial draft majority opinion that's written by Justice Samuel Alito, the Supreme Court has voted to strike down the landmark Roe versus Wade decision. Now, the draft opinion is a rejection of the 1973 decision guaranteeing federal constitutional protections of abortion rights and subsequent 1992 decision of Planned Parenthood versus Casey that largely maintained that right. Joining us now is the founder of the lead advocate at the Federation of International Gender and Human Rights, Dr. Ameena Ali. And Dr. Ali, let me confirm, first of all, this was leaked out, and we never hear of leaks coming from the Supreme Court, but a leak that has come through the Supreme Court with a resounding response from the American public. I'll start with you. Your thoughts on if this passes, what this means, and your thoughts.
Well, first of all, you have to ask why this happened now, after the first ever female of color, African-American, coming into the Supreme Court. Now, all of a sudden, there's leaks. So we got to look at this. We got to look at the timing of this. Then we got to look at the fact that this final opinion that was mysteriously leaked really is not a final opinion. This is what, it's almost like they kind of threw it out there, this kind of take everybody's temperature to see what you're doing, but it's a distraction. So I'm going to speak on the distraction and why it's a distraction and what that distraction will mean if it actually goes to final vote.
Okay, let's talk about it. You view this as a distraction, and why is it a distraction?
Well, first of all, they were vilifying the Roe Wade process for years. I remember this in elementary school back in the 70s, and I'm dating myself to tell you how far back this has been going. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't see its way clear because of the mandates that are going to happen behind that, what that's going to mean with this reversal, with this education of it. It's going to mean that so many states are going to now be given this ability to do this. And the distraction is it's going to take away rights that they already intended to take away. And it's going to trickle down. It's going to have that trickle down effect, if you will, because they're going to start with one thing, make that the big scene, and then slowly start eroding away the other rights that they had already intended to erode away. So the distraction is the big bang that this thing had when it hit the ground. So, yeah.
So we talk right now, 22 states that bar protections. And when we look around, where do we see New York playing in all of this?
Well, outside of the other states that are going to be of great advocacy for this, what we're going to see is another resounding thud, because you take it out of federal mandate, which is what this opinion is saying. Take it from the federal level, give it to the states, allow the states to mandate. Of course, all the far right states and those Republican, or we call it red states, are going to automatically take away these liberties. They're going to take away these structures, and what that's going to do to New York, which is kind of one time it'll be red, one time it'll be blue, one time it'll be independent. But what it will do is it will restructure what we already know as family planning, as maternal care. And we're already trying to fight this battle in Congress now to get more maternal care matters under wraps. So to know that New York is now going to get hit the hardest with this is going to be it's going to erase all that we've been working for the last 10, 15 years.
As you look yourself and you hear the possibility of this coming down the pike, we know that there could be a while. There'll definitely be oral arguments that'll be heard. And then we know going before the Senate and then seeing where that goes again, it puts a step back for you, a huge setback for women who've been on the front line. But talk about how much of a setback this would be.
Well, I'm going to read something to you in that. It says several states has already chipped away at the availability of the procedure. It swatches at the United States, and it allows the entirety of the country to come into some of the strictest abortion laws in the Western world. Do you hear that? Now, that was out of Politico, and that was stated as of this morning. Can you imagine what that means? Currently, 56 states already has a hard time with this thing as far as making it mandated. But if we take away the understanding of what it will mean individually for women, it's going to mean that now miscarriages are going to be now deemed as a federal or even a state investigation to see if this was a product of an abortion. Now the women that are having stillbirths or going all the way to term and then birthing a baby that doesn't live, they're going to wonder, is this a partial birth abortion? Was this done intentionally to birth this baby or make it look like you birthed the baby, knowing that the baby was going to be born dead? Another investigation. HIPAA laws that are taken into effect that women have with the maternal care, as far as if you're pregnant, you don't have to advise anyone if you're seeking an abortion. Taking this statute away would now make women that are a victim of rape, molestation, incest, these women have to now make a statute, a state, they have to make a criminal case of their violation. It has to be proven to be true, and then the court has to then say, yes, it's okay for you to get an abortion. How egregious is that? And how wrong is that for a woman that's already been violated to be raped again by the law?
Yeah, when we talk about this, a lot to clearly unpack. Questions are going to continue to loom for a long period of time, and I'm glad that I got you here that we can talk about this here, because there's so many things that we can talk about. I know another thing that comes by way of this is the possibility of having birth control being hard to access.
Oh my goodness, you have no idea. First of all, it's not even a thing of it being hard to access. They're going to question why you want it. That's a blatant violation of our privacy, of our confidentiality, of a woman's the Women's Rights Act. And we go all the way back to the suffragettes, where they were saying that even to get it, you had to ask your husband's permission. Now you got to ask the state's permission. Which one is your husband? Which one gives greater values? You go from asking your husband, now asking the state. Now they're saying if they take it out of the states that want ban it, unless you have permission from the family, which means that the family is deciding we don't want any more children. Who's carrying these children? Now you're going to have to get another written permission. You're going to have to get an approval. The husband has to go in. Or now they're saying they're going to make that a measure on the LGBTQ community. If you're planning on having children, you have to get permissions, and then you have to get what? Come on. This
right.
It's taking it too far, and it's really going backwards in life. And it seems like only men, absent present company, are the ones that are behind all of this. And the voice that suffices is the one that's permitting this to go forward.
Well, I was leading into this next question, so you probably like got me here. Where do condoms fit in all of this?
Well, here's the thing. It's easier to get. I'm going to say this, and no slight to you, but it's really easy.
I'm going. So I'm with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's easy to get Cialis and the blue pill and condoms. They give them free. But yet we have to ask permission for birth control. You have to get mandated to birth control. You have to get asked to tell why you need this birth control. But if you go into any free clinic, you get a basket sitting right out there as you're waiting, and you can grab a handful and put it in your pocket with no questions asked. Male, female, young, old, it doesn't make a difference. So what is that telling us? What is that looking at in the greater picture? That's saying that a man can do what he pleases, but a woman has to still ask permission. When does this stop? And now you're saying another man is going to come into the same conversation and now make it harder for women to make decisions that are right for her and right for the mandate that she chooses based on his opinion on how she should reproduce. Where does it end?
Right, which is what I was leading to, because when we talk about man, that's what we're talking about with this original Roe versus, when the decision was being put before, or the intention of putting this out there, the people that were the advocates for this originally were strictly white men who really felt as though they wanted to have control. Go back to 2022 now, or I should say fast forward to 2022 now, and you have majority white men who are making this decision again. And so as you look in 2022 versus what was going on back when we first instituted this, before these protections, the first people who were, against these protections were, white men. And now you see again, 2022, the faces haven't pretty much changed.
No, and the leak came from the office of, it was assumed that the person that was acceptable to be able to do that, they're looking at the people that would be able to leak such an opinion. It challenged the same gender and race. It challenged the understanding of how it leaked, who it leaked to, who was the connection, how all of this came out, and then how it got to the press, and then who leaked it to the press. So all of this is the distraction I'm talking about, because we want to talk about how it got leaked, but we need to talk about the contents of what was leaked. Why was this opinion so strong in someone that is supposed to have a neutral balance in this? And then coming from the Supreme Court, through the Supreme Court, this opinion has now been issued from the Supreme Court. Like, how do we get the highest court in the land to be more neutral and more conforming to what was seen and what is understood versus what their personal opinions are? So this goes way beyond just a piece of paper that just so happened to cross someone's desk for the wrong reasons. This is institutionalized.
Right. And in many states, it will be immediate, if you will, when this takes place. You'll find there will be some immediacy coming to this. When we look at New York, how immediate do you think it will be before things take effect?
Well, here's the thing. New York is a different breed of people. So we are not the ones that we saw in Texas that, went into panic mode. And people have resources outside of the state. They know, they have people, they have resources, they know where to go. And one of the things that I noticed, being born and raised in New York, we always have a plan B. I don't know if it's inbred in us, if it's innate in us, but our plan B is always going to have a different lead into this. We're going to have preemptive strikes that is going to allow us to be able to do what we need to do and protect our rights. And we're going to come to the table with this before all matters hit the fan. But places like Texas, where they were trying to institute it before all of this hit the fan, how did that happen? How did that get into the mainstay of this? And how was that put into place in the fear factor and the condoning of this before all of this came to be? And now this leaked out after the Texas thing. Yeah, we got to see, we got to follow this. And I hate to say it, but you got to follow the money. You got to see who benefits from this and who benefits better from the alienation of people and the suppression of this matter.
How do you prepare now, given the fact that you know that this has been leaked out and we know what the potential is possibly coming down the pike? For yourself, how do you prepare, and what's your conversation like with your clients?
Well, my mommies are on the ball. They understand that they have rights. And until this is done, we are going to exercise those rights to the hilt. I preach it, I teach it, I educate, I inform, I give them option in choice, and I let them know that this cannot suppress you. The more you grow into this in fear, the more it is seated in fear, and that's what they want. Keep going in what you know. Understand that there's a greater privilege in projection than it is in asking for permission. So what I mean is that if you plan yourself a little better, you won't have to worry about these laws. This will not affect you. If you plan your pregnancies, it's only 3 or 4 days a month that you can actually get pregnant. And if you utilize that in the goodness of what it is, then you won't have to worry about this, and you won't have to worry about continuing this going further. So you have to be educated, you have to be informed, and you have to stay on it. So, just keep yourself informed.
Well, you talk about education, but many times we know that a lot of our women and our men are uneducated when it comes to sex and reproductive health. Having these conversations are not something that is prevalent. And when we talk about our communities of color, we know that this is the conversation that's not pretty much had, but practiced. Hello. And so while you have many people practicing, but not really getting the education, do you foresee that there will be more on the education front behind this decision?
Absolutely. And I'm even pledging for that myself right now with the mayor's office. And I'm looking to get more education out there. A pound of knowledge always offsets the problem. Just knowing something before something happens gives you insight that you didn't already have. So that educational piece, that mindset of knowing that this is your right, this is your kind, and embedding that as common knowledge, as a great piece of goodness that you can take home with you, is definitely something that we're doing right now. And if I can't get this done through the mayor's office, we're looking at NYU, we're looking at Hofstra, all the colleges, to be able to have these as elective courses, to be able to better educate them at the younger level, and even getting into the high schools and having them as electoral classes that they can choose in their high school careers, so that they can get that knowledge firsthand. And then when things change, if they change, I'm praying and I'm working toward it not changing, getting our voices out there and getting it out at a younger age then we will be able to get into the resources that we need, knowing what we know, and then changing the game midstream. But I tell you, it's definitely necessary for us to be educated and get it at a younger and younger age so that they will know their rights before they become adults and now have to challenge the status quo.
Yeah, I don't want to date myself either, but I remember growing up in school, we had what was called DASH class, and that was
Yes.
drugs, alcohol, sex, and health. And we talked about some things. We weren't in depth all the way, but now the way the society is right now, I mean, we can go full in depth. We can give you videos, we can give you everything, right? You know, before that wasn't necessarily right. That wasn't necessarily the case, but now you have the opportunity to really, go in depth. And you talk about education at the elementary level. Do we see educational institutions? Do we see the public school system and other entities saying, listen, we already have classes, and they're trying to introduce classes already when it talks to sexuality, talking about LGBTQ issues. But when we talk about this matter, it doesn't get quite like the same attention as an LGBTQ matter. Will we see this heighten up in the educational system?
It has to. It has to. One of the things that I looked at years ago is the alt-right in the matter of sex education, and they took away the DASH classes, the same place and time that they tried to reinstitute, taking away the measure of pledging allegiance. And I remember that. I remember that distinctly, taking those classes. I was in Catholic school, so that tells you how deep it was. But there was such an uproar about it that they took it away. But yet now they're instituting the LGBT courses in school, and they're allowing it free flowing. So I don't know if it is a religious thing now, or if people are just realizing that this education needs to happen regardless, because there's the alt-right that is coming out. There are those that are the conservatives, they're having babies. I mean, look at the Bush administration back when Jenna which of the daughters was having a baby, and she was a teenager, and that discussion had to happen. And after that, we stopped having that discussion. We stopped saying teen pregnancy. When was the last time about teen pregnancy? We stopped having those discussions because they didn't want to talk about it. But now with this issue coming up, it has to come back out. It should have never stopped. But they thought they can subjugate it with other things, and the school shootings and 9/11 and all the things that came after it. They thought they could wash it away. But the problems were still happening. I still got 13, 14, 15-year-olds coming in having babies. I still had mommies wanting to have home births so we wouldn't have it documented in society, and people having to know she was in the hospital and that type thing. So we need to have this conversation. I can't tell you how many alt-right babies I had at home because mom didn't want to know that her 14-year-old unmarried sexually active child is now pregnant. So she wanted to keep it hush and privately document the birth and then adopt the baby out. I can't tell you how many. So if we had this education and we had this dynamic in schools, if we had this dynamics in community centers, in classrooms, in even behavioral health programs that we offer in the community, you'll see the decline because the education will be greater than the effect of the problem. And this is what I'm pushing for. This is what my legislation is going for. And then, of course, raising the voice of women that will have their rights challenged through this Roe Wade new scandal.
Well, I want to talk about elected officials for a minute because I know that a lot are still, reeling from leaked announcement. But when we talk about your conversation with them prior to this, what has it been? Has there been some receptivity, or are you seeing pushback? And do you feel as though that, given the fact that this leak and what potentially could come down the pike, that you will get a more receptive voice, given the fact that we know what's getting ready to happen?
Well, the SCOTUS said it best, and she said a quote yesterday, and I want to quote her on it. She said, now is the time to fight for women and for our country with everything we have. Now, that's a powerful statement, and that means resources, subsidies, knowledge, education, political pull, networking, all of it. And this is what really will make the goodness of what it is that we need possible. Because just like she said it's clear that those that oppose this law want to punish women and take away their rights. That's a question we have to ask. And in circling what you said, we have to ask that question in giving that dynamic to a voice. We have to ask that question, and we have to look at that in its realness. I can't even use another word because that's what we're facing right now. And I think that is where the leaders need to go. Senator was it Murkowski from Alaska? She's the
Mhm.
one that came on and she said, even now, she said that wasn't, she said that wasn't the direction I thought this was going to go. And she's conservative in Alaska, you know, and she was like, wait a minute, hold on. Almost like that's not what I voted for. That's not what we thought we were going to do. So it's giving an uprise to the senatorial pieces, to the governmental officials, even all the way up to SCOTUS. Biden is not even, you know, challenging this. He says, I'm not what did he say? I'm not at a point of being able to give, what was the word? He says he's not able to give his opinion at this point. And I'm thinking, why not? This is the best time for you to give your opinion. I get it. He has to go through his resources and challenge his sources, but SCOTUS came out and said it right now. Right now, we need to fight this with everything we have. And I think that's the energy that we're going into with our senators, our congressmen, and those elected officials.
So for you right now, where do you go from here? Obviously, we know where everybody else is going, but or kind of know what the idea of where everybody else is going. But for you and the work that you do, where do you go from here?
Well, I'm all for the Women's Health Protection Act. Women's Health Protection Act. This is something that kind of backdoors the Roe v. Wade, that if one fails, the other one is a fail safe. So it's a Women's Health Protection Act. And right now, if we don't even have enough votes to quell the filibuster right now on that. So if we could push that, we can arm up a little bit more on the Roe v. Wade piece, especially if that opinion becomes final. I doubt if it will, because it's only one Supreme Court, and we have a new face in the crowd that I'm pretty sure will help that to not succeed. But, you know, the Women's Health Protection Act, just what it says, should be something we look at, we vote on, we bring back forward, we bring into this next voice of wisdom that we're putting out there, and then give more education to that, because that in and of itself, just from what it says, the Women's Health Protection Act, if you Google it, if you research it, you will see that it is chock filled with things that we can do right now, immediately, to be a torchbearer for those that are getting ready to go through this and suffer the crisis of this. So if we put this into place, I guarantee you this statute will give us a little bit more credibility and show the value to the worth of our freedoms.
Oh, that's not your thing. But do you think, given the fact that this decision is potentially coming down the pipe, that this is going to generate more people coming to the polls?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. And the women that are coming behind me, oh my goodness, if I gotta be, I'm gonna be a Stacey Abrams on this one. I'm gonna get buses and everything and bring them to the polls. Okay. As they say, doing the Stacey Abrams when you put people in your car to bring them to the election.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna be a Stacey Abrams on this one. Absolutely. I don't need all the Nobel Peace Prize and none of that. I just want this to pass, because if they put any more interest into the Women's Health Protection Act, I guarantee you you're going to see it on the next election ballot. And this is where our voice has to be, especially here in New York, because we kind of set the tone for things. New York, Texas, California, Chicago up north, you know, for the Midwest, we set the tone for these things. So we need to get in here and we need to see this through and be the advocacy. We're not talking anymore. We got to go in there, write letters, knock on doors, make phone calls, but this needs to be on the ballot come this next voting period. And it's called the Women's Health Protection Act. We need the votes. There's not enough votes right now. You know, if there was no filibuster to get it done, there isn't enough votes. And being a political analyst or not, I mean, that's just evidentiary hearings that we can look into doing right now.
Right. A lot to pay attention to. And Dr. Ameena Ali, we unpacked a lot in our time together. Certainly, we'll have to have you back so that way we can talk more about this. We continue to follow this down. But we said the leaked opinion that's coming out saying that Roe v. Wade could be potentially overturned. We never have actually seen a leak that comes out of the Supreme Court ever. And now all of a sudden, we're at the place where we're talking about a leak and the potential and the ramifications of what it has nationwide for women and also for the states that are going to go a little bit harder than others and the people that live in those states. A lot to really pay attention to. But thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Ameena Ali. We got to go, but thank you.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for having me. We'll be back on this one.